We'll give it just a few for some people to join in who are joining in from a different platform, and then we'll begin the excitement. All right. Hopefully everyone can see me, hear me. And if we are lucky, you can see the screen. All right. So you should be able to see kind of the orange screen I've shared with you, touring in Japan, building your network and fan base before the tour. If you cannot see that, please let us know in the chat box and we'll see what's happening. Okay, so today's seminar is only scheduled for about 30 minutes. So it's not an in-depth master class, and we're not going to form individual plans for each band today. But what I hope this does is just give you some things to think about if you're planning on touring in Japan, or if you want to do a release in Japan, what you would need to do beforehand. There's more to it than just what I'm going to mention, more in depth, but I hope that this gives you a little bit of a foundation that you can start to work from, either as you formulate your own plan, or if you work with somebody based here in Japan to form a plan. All right, so let's go ahead and go on to the first exciting slide. Here we go. Okay, so this seminar is building your network and fan base before your tour. It's kind of hard to do it while you're on tour. So today's topic is just overview on building a Japan-based fan base via social media, online, before touring, and then your networking before the tour. Okay, so first, I'd like to give a small introduction about myself. Ooh, hey, David, good to see you. All right, the room is filling, so I should talk slow so nobody misses any information if they're trying to get in. So I am based in Tokyo, Japan, and I work in artist development. No problem, David. I work in artist development and management. So if an artist needs help, what do I do? How do I get a fan base here in Japan? How do I form my booking goals? What's up with my stage performance? I help with that, as well as management if that's what they want. I also do tour coordination for Japan-based bands and overseas bands coming here. And then I do one-off projects or short-term projects for independent bands, small labels, as well as working with some of the larger agencies here like Creative Man or HIP Touring. I do write some music journalism and industry articles like how to build a fan base, how to find a manager, how to do a release, how to formulate your booking strategy. I do English lyrics for several bands here in Japan, some anime lyrics, some rock lyrics. We do content creation, taking Japanese bands overseas. And I also work with some labels on when they're thinking of going overseas or just thinking of growing in Japan, but they're using some antiquated ways. And we talk about newer ways to do it. And I also enjoy doing Asian collaboration projects with music industry people and going to Thailand, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Korea, and more. So I think that takes care of me for now. Let's get on to the excitement of this seminar. Okay, so first, you want to build your fan base and network before you tour. Let's take a look at what are the main social media platforms in Japan. Some of them you'll recognize from wherever you are. Some might be new. Line is a bit like WhatsApp for those of you who aren't in Japan. So you text back and forth, but it also has a profile feature, kind of like Facebook. So in a way, it's the best of WhatsApp and the best of Facebook mashed together. That's our number one platform here. As you can see, 80 million people on it. Twitter, 45 million, Instagram, 33 million, and Facebook, which we tend to call Japan's LinkedIn, because we don't use LinkedIn very much, 28 million, and TikTok at 9.5 million. All right, Facebook is still used like a high schooler. That might be their very first social media other than Line. And company executives, touring people, the venues and band pages are on Facebook. Although Instagram seems to be more active among just general music audience. So don't discount one over the other. Try using both. All right, let's take a peek at how do people in Japan consume music. All right, as you can see, number one, video sharing. Predominantly YouTube, but there are a couple of Japan-based channels that are music sharing that some very famous legacy bands tend to use for their lives. Smaller bands will make TV shows and vlogs on them as well. Then television, it's listed as television radio, but radio is such a tiny, tiny percent of that. I wouldn't worry about it. But television, we have music television shows, music station, variety shows that feature bands. So a lot of people just listen to music via TV. Physical buying, CDs are still very, very popular, with vinyl growing and cassette growing. So a lot of hardcore punk bands like cassette. People are buying cassette. Uh, Physically renting CDs is next. That's how people are doing music. So as you can see, your streaming services like Spotify are at the bottom. So after physically renting, people will buy a single or buy a DVD or sorry, free download first, then pay for the single, and finally at the very bottom, your paid streaming services. So for those of you who are used to, oh, I just need to get on a Spotify playlist and my life is golden, unfortunately, that won't really work here. So you're going to want to maybe focus on YouTube. You're going to want to have some singles available for download if they decide to. And of course, if you're coming here for tour, make some CDs. Okay, now, in that tiny bit of streaming services, what are people using? People still consider YouTube a streaming service, and it's free. Amazon Music and Apple Music next, but usually people don't use those for streaming. They just buy the single that they want, they get on, they get the single they want, they get off. Line Music is a streaming service. Then Spotify and AWA, that's next. And finally, with a little bit of people, KKBox, Troops, and some others. So again, you can see here, Spotify is way down on the list of something that's only 7% already. So be careful on that. As you can see, YouTube is where you want to look. So I would advise before you come to Japan, you're going to want to make sure your social medias are in order. Make sure your YouTube page looks good. Make sure you have some quality videos there. Make sure you have newish videos on there. Facebook page, make sure everything is clear and up to date. Instagram, if you don't use Line, it's fine. If you use Facebook, Instagram, and you have YouTube, this is enough to start with. All right, so a social media campaign should probably start 6 to 8 months before your tour. So since you should start planning your tour 6 to 8 months before, they go hand in hand. As soon as you start booking a tour, or as soon as you contact someone in Japan to help you book the tour, start your social media campaign to start building your fan base. I suggest concentrating on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook as your big ones. Everyone loves Facebook, as you can see from the other lists, whether it be digital or consuming music, anything like that. Instagram is where you're going to get a lot of interaction, and Facebook is where the venue owners are, the festival people, the first opening social media for many a high schooler, still the people that work in the industry, or I don't want to say older, but over 35 are going to be on Facebook, so don't discount those. Um, what we've done in the past is we've had bands do a 3-week cycle. So they do a sponsored social media post, and then 3 weeks later, they do another one. About 4 days, 4 or 5 days on the first one, 3 weeks later, another one, 3 weeks later, another one, 3 weeks later, another one, all the way up until their tour is hitting. I suggest, and this is just through no solid evidence, but just the guess, first, concentrate on the metro areas you plan on touring in. So the first cycle, focus in on, say, Tokyo and near, Osaka and near, Nagoya and near. Then the next cycle, all Japan. Then the next cycle, again, your metro areas. Then the next cycle, all Japan. And the next, the metro areas. I highly suggest you use Japanese language. Some people have tried to do their campaigns, big, long things in English, and they wonder why they aren't getting any fans. Of course, Japanese people can read English, but that doesn't mean they want to. And it's very good to localize when you go into an area. So we highly advise on your social campaign, use all Japanese initially, and then if you desire later shorter campaigns, at least start in Japanese, like one sentence in Japanese, and then the next couple of sentences in simple English for the remainder. If you're doing something on Facebook, tie it to a video or your band page. And if you're doing your ad on Instagram, tie it to a video or a 2 to 3 card, not story, but when you post a picture, use multiple pictures and do 3 in kind of like a, so it looks like a little mini magazine article. That is popular right now. If you're doing photos on Instagram, flat lays are very popular here. So if there's some way you can use your personal band aesthetic and make it like a flat lay, that is very good, very Instagrammable. And this last one is for like the 3 card. If you have a photo of a band member with some graphic or some words around it, English is fine here. We're talking just a few words. And then you swipe to get to the next photo of another band member with a few words, and then swipe another band member or another scene with a few words. That has been very popular recently with Japanese artists, so you should snag that for yourself. All right. So in general, once you're doing this, you're going to want to engage with your commenters, thank your newcomers, offer some perks, things like that. My guess is many of you who are musicians are already doing some of this as you're building your fan base in your local area. So to build the fan base in Japan is not really anything super new. It's just remembering, localize it to the language, look at what type of visual images are popular in Japan and use those. I want to make a note here, though, that in your visual images, do not start using Japanese imagery. You throwing on a kimono and eating sushi will not help you make a fan base in Japan, because people in Japan already eat sushi. They're already wearing yukata. You doing it is not going to be impressive. After your tour, showing your lovely photos of you out with other band members, eating sushi in your yukata, great. But when you're promoting yourself, promote yourself as you are. Certainly unique and interesting things from your own home country is going to be great. All right, let's now flip it, building your network and fan base before your tour. Okay, I've had a lot of bands that want to come over and they say, okay, so of course TV and radio is going to be interested in me, right? No. What you need to do is do not count on any radio or media publications being interested in you as a first-time band touring to Japan. Let's look at what is the Japanese music scene like. Tokyo has over 800 registered music venues. Most of them operate 7 nights a week, and most of them book between 3 and 9 performers a night. So on a given night in Tokyo, there's about 3,600 performers on stage. Osaka has about 250 registered venues. Similar setup, you can kind of do the math on. So how many bands are performing every night in a major metropolitan area? So with that, media, radio, etc., they're used to people coming over saying, oh, I'm going to be big in Japan. Japan must be eagerly awaiting for me. And then they never come back again. They come for one tour, they do 5 shows, they have very little interaction, and they never come back. And media is thinking, what did we waste our time for? Why did we interview them? What happened here? So throughout the years, they've gotten a bit jaded. And so other than some small, very independent media or tiny radio shows or a friend of a new fan, in general, TV, radio, media is not going to be interested in publishing until your maybe 3rd or 4th tour, when you have built up a buzz, social media buzz, online in Japanese. Then they'll say, this band is very serious about this market. Now we're a little bit more interested in them. So what you're going to want to do with networking is not look for radio and TV, but start networking with those venues. As soon as you book in your first show, whether you do it or you have a coordinator here do it, once they tell you your first show is booked, start networking with that venue. For instance, tag them in a tweet, tag them in a Facebook post, tag them in whatever other social media that you're doing. Send them a direct tweet that says, we're so excited to be playing there, and start your networking with the venue. Once you know some other bands you're playing with, tweet at them, direct message. We're so excited to be playing with you when we come next March. Start building that collaboration, get them excited to meet you, let them know that you're excited to meet them. All right. So now once you're here on tour, networking with the other bands is very important. Mingle with them. Don't hide in the back. Don't say, I don't want to talk to the other bands. Mingle with them. Be professional, polite, and friendly with all the venue staff. Here, you're going to find that almost every venue is either related to a label or a festival in some way. The sound engineer that you think, he's just a sound engineer for this little venue, actually might be one of the people on the committee that chooses bands for a huge festival. The venue manager, their best friend, maybe runs a label. So it's good to network with everybody throughout this. We've had some good success having bands bring swag bags for the venue. For the venue staff, bring a CD, a t-shirt, some sort of edible treat from your home country that they can share with all the staff. Bring some extra goodies or merch items for the other bands. Take photos with the other bands. Post that on your social media, tagging in them so that their fans see it as well as your potential new fans. All right, and now let's look at questions. So if I go to the chat box here, we have a question. Should we use a language converter to get the Japanese for posts or get a Japanese translator to help? Don't use a Japanese converter like Google Translate unless it's one word. Hello, good morning, house. Okay, simple words Google Translate can do for you. But for a whole passage, what I suggest is write the passage in your own words and your own flavor. Like if you're a very peppy, spunky pop band, write it the way you normally would. If you're a hardcore rock band, write it the way you normally would. If you're a really raunchy deathcore band, write it the way you would. And then use a native Japanese person who is fluent in English that knows music to convert it into Japanese, still keeping your own flavor. There's there are words and phrases in Japanese that are very poppy and cutesy. There are ones that are very serious, and there are ones that are pretty raunchy and rugged. So you want somebody that's going to carry your flavor over into that. All right, collaborations with Japanese artists as an entrance strategy. If you have a Japanese artist that you like, there's nothing wrong with trying to approach them to do a collaboration. We've done it before for bands, and I would say about 80% of the time the Japanese artist will say, no, not yet, because they want to meet you in person first. They want to see what you're doing in Japan first, and then they're going to make it a choice. We don't really do songwriting sessions here. So some artists come in, I want to do songwriting session with Japanese artists, but it's not very popular here. So you kind of look into other things. Let's see, so many questions so quickly. Let's do it. Okay, hashtags. Should we use Japanese or should we use English? I'm going to say you should use both. Sometimes, depending upon the fan, they're going to look up no music, no life is often looked up in English, but instabe is looked up in Japanese. Uh, Things like rock music is looked up in Japanese and English. So use both. Let's see. Okay. We don't really do buy-ons here. So we have a question saying, can a foreign artist buy onto a tour with a larger foreign band? Ooh, okay, with a larger foreign band. Okay, if you're a foreign artist and you have an opportunity to buy onto a tour of a foreign artist that is well known here, I think that's a longer discussion because buy-ins have their pros and cons. If that large artist is performing at a huge festival with guaranteed audience of 15,000 people, maybe it's worth it. But if they're performing just in a normal 5,000 largest venue, it might not be worth it. I've worked with artists before that bought on to like a 5,000 person tour before. Nobody paid attention to them. When they come on their own next time, nobody has come to see them. It didn't help them. So I think that's going to be a case by case basis. And certainly if you're interested in it, you can email me and I'm happy to talk to you about it later. Do you think let's see. Okay. Do you think that limits opportunities for Japanese bands to gain exposure in their home territories? I'm going to say not so much because there are instances where, like, especially with heavy metal or deathcore, where it is kind of like a foreign band, foreign band, foreign band, one Japanese band. So you taking one of those slots isn't going to hurt the Japanese band. Another question on collaborations. So I'm going to say again with the collaborations, I think you should know the artists first. Rather than looking immediately for collaborations. Now, if you are very famous in your home country and you want a very well-known artist here, sometimes that's a different situation. But if you're not so well-known at home and therefore you'd be looking at a not so well-known artist here, again, it's difficult. If you have publishing and they have publishing, who's getting the rights, etc. So again, kind of case by case, we need to look at it. And is the artist that you want to collaborate worth doing a collaboration with? There are some artists, yeah, you could collaborate with them, but they don't have any fans. So how does it help you? It may or may not help you. All right. Okay, established artists taking on newer, younger artists on tour, launch their career. Okay, so this kind of sharing tour concept doesn't happen in Japan so often because Japanese artists kind of plot their tours and where they go maybe differently than you're used to in the US or some places in Europe. Um, and also the pay structure here is different. So for you to go on tour with an established artist, that artist has to assume financial responsibility for you unless you're going to pay, uh, kind of like pay for your stage. Um, a lot of Japanese artists don't play that often either. An indie artist will go on like a big tour, but a well-known artist, they're going to play once in Tokyo, they're going to play once in Osaka, they're going to play once in Sapporo, they're going to be done. And they do it as a one-man show, and that's that. If they have an opener, it's their friend. It's not just a generic foreign artist that they might have met. Again, this is 99% of the time. 1% of the time it could work. So it doesn't hurt to do it. So, for instance, right now we are looking for an Australian duo that wants to collaborate with some Japanese artists. We're contacting the Japanese artists, talking about tour opportunities. But what we're getting is 50% of the Japanese artists immediately just say no because we don't know them. We've never met them. And when we go online and see what are they doing here, there's nothing online about them. We need that artist to show that they legitimately want the Japanese market and they're trying to do it ourselves. Okay. So talking about tours, here in Japan, in general, the independent artist venues book 3 to 7 bands a night, every night. There is no headliner tour, and you aren't a support act. You're just one of the bands. You're just one of the 5. So first tour, second tour, third tour, you just do a live house show. You're one of the bands out of the 3, 5, or 7. Fronting your shows would mean you'd have to rent the venues, and nobody wants to rent venues if you don't want to. Children's rock music. I have been to some family shows, and there are rock bands that do family shows on the weekends. So I think it's a potential market that you could look into aiming at a younger audience. 3 to 7 for jazz. Not usually. Jazz tends to be 1 to 3, not 3 to 7. So jazz might be, you could solo it. So if you do have a fan base here, you could, or partner with another artist. But usually, rather than you partnering with one jazz artist for multiple shows, kind of like a previous one saying, a Japanese band with a younger band to take them around, it's you partner with a jazz artist in Tokyo and partner with a different jazz artist in Osaka and partner with a different jazz artist in Okinawa. You would take somebody who has kind of a local fan base there if they choose to. Jazz fusion. There is a market here for everything. If you make music by pressing on a fluorescent light bulb, there's a market for that. There's a guy 5 minutes from my house that does that. Okay, so every style of music is already here. So there's a market for everything that you can do. We can find bands, we can find venues that do that. How to get on the bill? Okay, so in essence, we don't really have what we might call booking agents because you will not make any money from touring. It is door deal. So let's see. What you'd want to do is you would contact the venue or a tour coordinator here well before 6 to 8 months. Again, you'd contact a venue or you'd contact a tour coordinator 6 to 8 months before you want to tour. Talk about what you need. If you're talking to a tour coordinator, book out some dates. They'll get some information from you and then start plugging you in. The very nice benefit to just plugging into the shows like that is almost all venues here provide complete backline, lighting, sound techs, stage assistants, everything. You just show up, you plug in your guitar, and you play. All right, so they have quality people there to help you. Uh, yeah, and so Blacken has mentioned renting a venue is very expensive. It can be. Depending upon the day of the week or the size of the venue, certainly it can range anywhere from, for a regular band, anywhere from about $1,000 to $6,000 for one night. And that's only a limited number of hours. And if you rent the venue, then you also have to pay some additional staff to do merchandising and lineup and security. Not that there's really a security need here, but it's quite expensive if you think, oh, we're going to do a headliner tour. I do work with a band that does that, but they know that they can sell 500 tickets in Tokyo because they've been here before and they have the fan base. They know they can sell 300 tickets in Osaka. So for them, renting the venue and just doing their own show is well worth it. But I would say for the first few tours, just let yourself be plugged into the shows. It lets you meet more bands. It lets you see more venues. It lets you be more part of the scene here and kind of get a feel for what is it really like? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to put in the hard work for it? Or was this just a good experience for me? All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? All right. So, venue context. You can use Google and just go like that. Tokyo Live House. Tokyo Live House. And you would come up with some of them, or you would go Osaka Live House, and you're going to come up with some of them, and you can message them. They're going to need you to message them in Japanese most of the time. So it can be difficult if you have a friend that knows Japanese. You can go for it. You can try it in English, basic. There's a few venues that are used to accepting emails in English and can help you. And tour coordinator contacts. Well, Dwayne, who is one of the leads of this particular conference, of Kansai Music Conference, does tour coordination, management, and booking. And I also do tour coordination, management, and booking. So, you could contact one of us. I book all over the country. I think Dwayne does also. He doesn't just book in the Osaka area. And yeah, just talk to us. Let me see, I'll put my email in here also. Yeah, so feel free to contact one of us and we can, talk about what your needs are, what you hope to do. And what I do encourage bands is sometimes bands think to come to Japan, they need to do it only because they're super serious about breaking into the market. You can be that type of band, that's fine, but you also might be a band that just likes to travel and meet new people, and you're not really wanting to put in 10 years of hard work effort to grow in Japan, but you think it'd be cool to play in Japan. That's fine too. Just let your tour coordinator know your goals so that they can kind of book the tour and kind of make it easy for you based on what you're looking at. If you're just doing it for, heck, this is going to be fun, I want to play music overseas, there are some venues that are best for that. If you're really wanting to break into the market and grow, there's some other venues that your tour coordinator should look at. All right, what other questions? Any other questions? I know this is kind of quick and it's really kind of basic, but when it comes down to it, a lot of it's case by case. You really need, what's your situation? What do you need? What do you want to grow out of it? Who do you already know here or not? All right. Anything else? Anything else? Exciting questions? Oh, has a beard. One has a beard. Any news on COVID? Well, as I was saying in a thing before, here in Tokyo at least, there was never a time where all live houses closed. So some closed, the very large ones stopped doing the huge concerts, the arena tours. The 5,000 people live houses, they stopped. Many of the average sized ones did close, but many of them kept going. Instead of booking 7 bands, they would only book 3, and they would only let 50 people in the door instead of the usual 100. Now, many of the venues, they've gone to maybe 25 to 30 people in person. And then they also do a live streaming show. So you can pay a higher ticket price for kind of the VIP live experience, or the lower price and just watch it from the comfort of your home. So we've never stopped booking local bands this whole time. It's just been smaller shows. As far as when can people come in, it seems the buzz, they're going to start doing partnerships with the Southeast Asian countries. So Thailand, Vietnam, Myanmar, India, Hong Kong, Singapore. Those artists can come here and we can go there from Japan. That's going to be their initial opening. Then apparently Australia, New Zealand are going to be after that. And then hopefully the whole world opens up. So once we hear that the border has opened up to somebody somewhere, it'll be easier to start making these tours. All right, what else? Anything else? So again, for those of you who signed up through Eventbrite, I believe that you have my email there, but you can also find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook. Enter Idoru. Please send me a message. Let me know if you have other questions. I'm happy to answer them. Or if you want to do like a one-to-one, like a Skype or Zoom chat to talk specifically about your band and what you're looking for, I'm happy to do that. All right, well, let me let you guys go. Some of you are in different time zones, maybe a little bit sleepy. So carry on. Please message me if you have any questions or need anything. All right, bye-bye.